This is our second go-round at it, and we are attempting to address some of the concerns that have been raised. And I want to thank my colleagues who are joining me again from the original bill as co-sponsors on this bill. And I hope that over the next couple of months we have productive discussions and we can get to a yes that everybody says they want to get to. So I look forward to trying to make that happen. I know I want to focus on why I'm introducing the bill, and I think we're all aware of the consequences of having a large portion of our population subsisting on substandard wages that do not reflect the cost of living in the D.C. metropolitan area. And I only have to think back on all our discussions about affordable housing and to remember the other side of an expensive apartment is an inadequate income. And the number of apartments that become available to people and affordable to people changes when the income of those people changes. For our residents, minimum wage jobs do not afford a decent life nor dignity to work. People work hard, often in the most unpleasant jobs available, but they do not get ahead on a minimum wage job. And while it's great to acknowledge hard work, in these cases, it's not just hard work, it's endless work. And endless work is not good. I had a conversation with somebody a few months ago, and we were talking about the importance of people being able to spend time with their families. They asked why this is so important to me. And I said, people can't work 80 hours a week and spend any time with their kids. This does not work. And the answer I got was an interesting, everybody has the same amount of time, as if families and adults choose not to be with their children. And the fact is, the only reason they make that choice is because they've got to put bread on the table and roof over their kids' heads. And I think it's important to address that. Poverty wages destabilize families. We have a myriad of studies that can talk about and we can produce that talk about how poverty affects decision-making and affects depression. And that's in adults, and that effect cascades down to the children. Children who grow up in families where the adults are depressed, where the adults are frustrated and unable to deal with the economic circumstances that they're dealt, that affects children. And the children bring that to school. And I can tell you that as a school teacher firsthand, but I can also tell you again from a ton of studies that are out there that look at the effects of poverty on children, and they tell you that poverty is the #1 predictor of academic achievement, and it's because it disrupts, in many ways, children's ability to learn and to be focused in school. And they do not need to be dealing with the stresses that their parents are dealing with when they come through the school door. People cannot afford decent and affordable housing. We wind up trapped in overcrowded substandard housing, which hurts families and especially children. I visited our shelters where working people with real jobs seeking housing, because they cannot afford apartment, they are spending the night in a homeless shelter. And I was just stunned talking to people who actually went out to work every day and then were coming into the homeless shelter to spend the night because they can't get a security deposit raised to make the rent. And that shouldn't happen to people who work full time. Apartment owners keep records of tenants who are habitually late in their payments, and which should not be a surprise to anybody since half the tenants in this county spend more than 50% of their income on housing. Why that shouldn't be a surprise is many people don't have the money to pay the rent until the second paycheck. And if the second paycheck comes in after the 10th, you are late on your rent. And many landlords have adopted automatic reporting of late rent payments, which puts you in a category where other landlords can look you up and say this person is habitually late. And the saddest part about all this is after not only are they late, they wind up having to pay a penalty for being late. So they pay a higher rent than the rent on the books, and they wind up being penalized in the long run. Plentiful studies show the effects of poverty, and again, we're going to have a chance to talk about that. Montgomery County, we have more children on free and reduced lunch than the District of Columbia. This is not a badge of honor. This is something we can do something about. These effects are not felt on the periphery. They're felt at the very core of our community. And we've all seen the heat maps in Montgomery County where poverty, lack of health care, high crime, and low educational attainment all overlap each other. You could paint them one solid color because they reflect all four conditions. These are real issues that we have to deal with at the local level, and we need to deal with. Poverty is expensive, and taxpayers often wind up footing the bill. And it is not fair to ask Montgomery County taxpayers to pay subsidies to Walmart workers. It makes no sense that people have to turn to us for support from the government when their employers, some of them like the Walmarts and McDonald's of the world, make more money than God and would not be harmed one bit if they had to pay people a decent wage. A substandard minimum wage allows businesses to shift what should be their costs onto the public and onto taxpayers. These bills address the concern of small businesses by giving them more time to adjust. The 5-year period essentially requires a raise of 70 cents a year, far less onerous than what would have been required had it all been required by 2020. And I hope that we'll be able to reach an agreement on what kind of changes we can make to pass this bill. I will be introducing an amendment when this eventually comes up because we were talking about the effect on small businesses, and we realized that we had a disincentive in some ways for small businesses to expand, that if you had 23 employees and if going to 26 over the period of your ramp up would throw you over the minimum, then you'd be thrown into the higher wage category. So it made sense to say whatever category a small business found itself in, if they are on the 2022 scale on day one, then they would stay on the 2022 scale, even if they're able to add employees and expand their business. We did not want this to be an impediment to small businesses being able to advance. And I anticipate a robust discussion. I think probably, and I'll presage this, I think probably the most important issue is going to be what's the size of a small business. That seemed to be an issue last time for some people, and I guess we'll have this discussion again. But I think the important thing is we need to get a bill, we need to get it soon, and we need to get something that serves the greatest number of people that we can feasibly serve. I cannot think of anything more important than what we're doing here, because it redounds not just on the individual who's going to get a larger paycheck, but it's going to affect families, it's going to affect housing, and it's going to affect children and their ability to learn. There aren't many things we do that stretch their effects over so many different areas of people's lives. So I look forward to the discussion and thank my colleagues who joined me for sticking with this bill.